Late at night on the 40th floor, my arrogant manager threw his half-drunk cold coffee onto the expensive carpet and snapped at the cleaning lady without even looking at her. "Clean it up before I get back." He had no idea. The woman in the gray uniform was the new chairwoman of the company, and the only person who stopped to help her was me. As I'm riding through this quiet road today, I can't stop thinking about what happened to me 5 years ago. It was a cold, rainy night. I was still working late on the 40th floor of Meridian Tower, the same building that once felt like both my prison and my only hope. My eyes were burning from staring at the screen for too many hours. Corbin, my manager, had dumped the entire third-quarter data mess onto my team again, and I had to fix it before morning or risk losing everything. The rain was tapping hard against the tall glass windows, creating a constant, lonely rhythm. I heard the familiar sound of a cleaning cart's wheels rolling slowly down the empty hallway. That soft, metallic rattle that usually meant the night shift cleaners were doing their rounds. I looked up just as Corbin stormed out of his office, still yelling into his phone. Without warning, he hurled his half-empty cup of cold coffee straight onto the expensive carpet, right in front of a woman in a gray cleaning uniform. She was pushing her cart quietly, head slightly bowed. "Clean it up before I get back," he barked coldly. "And make sure there isn't a single stain left." He didn't even glance at her face. He just adjusted his tie and walked away like she didn't exist. I sat there for a second, feeling something tight in my chest. I had seen this kind of behavior many times before, people treating the cleaning staff like they were invisible. But that night, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I stood up from my desk, grabbed a fresh stack of paper towels from the supply closet, and walked over. The woman had already knelt down on the floor and was quietly trying to blot the dark stain spreading across the carpet. Without saying much, I knelt down beside her and handed her the clean towels. "Here," I said softly. "Let me help." She looked up for a brief moment. Her eyes were tired but sharp. I didn't think much of it then. To me, she was just another night shift cleaner who didn't deserve to be treated that way. We worked together in silence for a minute, the sound of rain and the faint squeak of the cleaning cart, the only things breaking the quiet. I could feel the exhaustion in my own body, the same exhaustion that came from trying to be a good father and a reliable employee at the same time. Little did I know, that simple act of handing her those paper towels would become the moment that changed my life and my daughter Millie's future forever. After we finished cleaning the coffee stain, I glanced at my watch. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Millie was waiting for me at home with our neighbor. I knew I still had hours of work ahead, but something made me pause. I went back to my desk, picked up the small plastic lunchbox I had brought from home, and walked over to where the woman in the gray uniform was still standing beside her cleaning cart. Without thinking too much, I opened the box and broke the sandwich in half. It was a simple ham sandwich that Millie had helped me make that morning. The cuts were a little crooked, just the way a 5-year-old would do it, but it was made with love. I held out one half to her. "Here," I said quietly. "Night shifts are long. You should eat something. My daughter Millie made this with me this morning. She cut it herself. It's a bit messy, but it tastes pretty good." The woman hesitated for a moment, then took the half sandwich from my hand. We both sat down on the cheap plastic chairs in the quiet corner of the hallway. The rain continued to fall outside, creating a soft, steady sound against the windows. For a while, we ate in silence. Then she asked me gently, "Why are you still here so late? Your manager already left." I let out a tired breath and looked down at the piece of sandwich in my hands. Because Corbin dumped the entire third-quarter data error onto my team, I told her honestly. If I don't fix it before tomorrow morning, the whole project will be delayed again. And if that happens, I won't have enough to pay Millie's school fees next month. I paused, then continued with a small, weary smile. I could go out drinking with him and the other managers to get on his good side, but I don't want to. Every night, I try to get home before Millie falls asleep. She's afraid of the dark, and she always waits for me to read her a bedtime story. I'd rather lose this job than let my daughter think her dad is someone who has to bow his head just to survive. The woman listened quietly, her eyes never leaving my face. There was something unusual in the way she paid attention. Not like a stranger, but like someone who truly wanted to understand. Sitting there on those uncomfortable plastic chairs, sharing a simple sandwich with a night shift cleaner, I felt strangely seen. For the first time in a long while, someone was listening to me, not because they wanted something from me, but simply because they were there. I had no idea at the time that the woman sitting beside me, quietly eating the crooked sandwich my daughter had helped make, was actually the new chairwoman of Meridian Technology, the person who now held the future of everyone in this building in her hands. After we finished the sandwich, I thanked the cleaning lady and went back to my desk. The night felt even longer now. The rain outside had not stopped, and the only light came from my computer screen and the cold fluorescent lamps in the hallway. I didn't notice her at first, but I could feel someone standing quietly a few feet behind me. It was the same woman in the gray uniform. She was watching me work in silence. I thought she was just taking a break, so I kept focusing on the screen. I had been working on a new way to fix the data system, a different approach from what the senior engineers had been trying for the past 2 months. It wasn't flashy, but I believed it could solve the root problem once and for all. My fingers moved across the keyboard as I rebuilt the algorithm step by step. While I was deep in concentration, my eyes drifted to the small drawing taped on the partition of my desk. It was a colorful crayon picture Millie had made for me 2 weeks earlier. In the drawing, a giant father figure was using both hands to shield a tiny house from the rain. Inside the house, a little girl was smiling. At the bottom, in Millie's messy handwriting, it said, "Dad is my silent superhero." A soft voice broke the silence behind me. "That's a beautiful drawing. Is that you and your daughter?" I turned around. The cleaning lady was looking at the picture with gentle eyes. For some reason, I didn't feel annoyed by the question. Instead, I felt proud. "Yes," I replied quietly. "That's me and Millie. She drew it after I told her I would always protect her, even when things get hard." The woman stepped a little closer and studied the drawing carefully. "You must love her very much," she said. "I do," I answered. "That's why I stay late every night. But I also refuse to go drinking with Corbin and the other managers just to get on their good side. I won't play their games. I'd rather come home to read bedtime stories to Millie than lose myself trying to impress people who don't even see me as a human being." I let out a tired sigh and continued. "Because of that, I've been put on the layoff list. Corbin says I'm not a team player. But I can't teach my daughter that success means stepping on others or pretending to be someone I'm not." The woman remained silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, but carried a strange weight. "You're doing the right thing, Silas. Not many people would choose their child over their career in a place like this." I was surprised she remembered my name. I must have mentioned it earlier without realizing. I gave her a small nod and turned back to my screen. She stayed there a little longer, watching me work, before quietly pushing her cleaning cart away down the hallway. That night, I finally finished the new algorithm just before sunrise. I saved the file, leaned back in my chair, and looked again at Millie's drawing. I had no idea that the woman in the gray uniform had not only listened to every word I said, but had also understood exactly what my work meant. As I packed my things to go home, I kept the half piece of sandwich wrapper in my pocket, the one Millie had helped wrap that morning. Little did I know it would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in my life just a few hours later. The next morning I walked into the boardroom on the 50th floor with my heart heavy and my eyes still burning from the all-night work. I was wearing the same slightly wrinkled shirt from the night before. I took my usual seat in the far corner, the one reserved for the people who were never really meant to speak. Corbin stood at the front of the room, confident and loud, flipping through his slides. He was blaming the entire project delay on the low-level staff and pointing directly at me. "This kind of incompetence cannot continue," he said sharply. "Silas Brooks has shown repeatedly that he is not a team player. I recommend we let him go immediately. We need people who understand the culture here." I sat completely still, hands folded in my lap. I kept thinking about Millie, how I would explain to her that Daddy might not be able to pay for her school next month. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I had learned long ago that raising my voice never helped in rooms like this. Then the heavy door opened. The woman from last night walked in, but she was no longer wearing the gray cleaning uniform. She wore a perfectly tailored dark suit, her posture straight and calm, carrying a thin file in one hand. The entire room rose at once. Chairs scraped against the floor. Corbin's face drained of color. His voice cracked as he forced a smile and bowed his head. "Chairwoman Blythe, good morning, madam. We were just discussing the project status." I felt the floor shift beneath me. My mind went blank. The same woman I had knelt beside on the carpet, the same woman I had shared half a crooked sandwich with, was the new chairwoman of Meridian Technology. Chairwoman Blythe did not smile. She did not raise her voice. She walked slowly to the head of the long table and placed the file down with quiet precision. Beside it, she laid something else, the crumpled half piece of sandwich wrapper from the night before, still slightly stained with coffee. The room fell into a dead silence. In the same steady, almost gentle tone she had used when she thanked me for the paper towels, she spoke. "Corbin, you seem very concerned about cleanliness. Last night you told a member of our cleaning staff to make sure there wasn't a single stain left on the carpet before you returned." She paused, letting the words settle. "Yet you showed zero concern for the dignity of the people who actually make this company run. The algorithm that saved the third quarter project, the one your team has failed to solve for 2 months, was not created by you. It was created by the man you just recommended we fire." She looked straight at me for the first time. "Silas Brooks solved it quietly, in one night, while also being a father who refused to play your games. That is the kind of leadership this company needs." Corbin opened his mouth, but she raised one hand slightly. Not in anger, just enough to stop him. "You are no longer with this company, Corbin. Clean out your desk before I return, and make sure there isn't a single trace of your toxic attitude left behind." Then she turned fully toward me. Her eyes were calm, but there was a warmth in them I had not seen the night before. "Silas, the Director of Analytics position is now open. I would like you to take it, and lead it the same way you led last night. Quietly, honestly, with the same heart that made you share a sandwich with someone you thought was beneath you. I sat there, completely stunned, the wrapper from Millie's sandwich still resting on the polished table like the most important evidence in the room. In that moment, everything I had believed about power, about who was seen and who was invisible, shattered quietly and completely. 1 week after that unforgettable morning in the boardroom, I found myself sitting on an old wooden bench in the small park near our apartment. The sun was warm and gentle on my face, and Millie was happily drawing on her sketchbook beside me, humming a little song she had made up. For the first time in a very long time, I felt truly at peace. I never thought I would see her again so soon outside of work. Chairwoman Blythe walked toward us wearing a simple sweater and jeans. No designer suit, no commanding presence, just an ordinary woman carrying a small paper bag with some fresh bread and ingredients. When Millie spotted her, she jumped up with a big smile and ran straight into her arms. "Miss Blythe, did you come to make sandwiches with us today?" Blythe laughed softly and knelt down to Millie's level. "I turned down the fancy corporate party this weekend. I wanted to see what a real Saturday looks like, if that's okay with your dad." We ended up sitting together on that bench, the three of us. Millie insisted on teaching Blythe exactly how we make our special sandwiches. With great seriousness, my 5-year-old daughter showed her how to spread the mayonnaise evenly and how to cut the sandwich the right way. Blythe listened carefully and followed every instruction, smiling when Millie got a little mayonnaise on her cheek. There were no big announcements, no dramatic promises about promotions or grand changes. We simply sat there eating the sandwiches that Millie and Blythe had made together, while my daughter chattered excitedly about her drawings and her dreams of becoming an artist one day. I watched quietly as the most powerful person in our company carefully folded the sandwich wrapper exactly the way Millie liked it. In that ordinary afternoon, under the warm sunlight filtering through the trees, all the invisible lines that once separated us, money, power, position, quietly disappeared. For the first time, I understood that true change does not always come with loud announcements or grand gestures. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a simple sandwich shared on a park bench between a single father and a woman who once wore a gray cleaning uniform. And in that moment, I realized how one small act of kindness on a rainy night had quietly changed everything for me and my daughter.
You know, my friend, this story is an original piece of fiction I wanted to share with you from the heart. Though the characters are imagined, the feelings of being invisible at work, the exhaustion of a single father trying to do the right thing, and the quiet power of simple kindness, those are feelings many of us know too well. This story carries one gentle reminder. In a noisy world where people often measure worth by titles and loud voices, the greatest strength is still quiet. It lives in the father who chooses his child over playing the game. It lives in the woman brave enough to step down from her high position and truly see the people around her. Kindness is never a waste. It always finds its way back in the most unexpected and beautiful moments. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart today, let me know in the comments. I'll keep bringing you these healing tales every week.